There comes a moment in every human life when the noise of the world becomes deafening. We are caught in the constant whirlpool of activity, calls demanding our attention, obligations pulling us in multiple directions, expectations weighing down on our shoulders. We have become prisoners of urgency, slaves of noise, and captives of distraction. And yet, in that prison of constant motion, many realize too late that they have been running without knowing where they are going. They have been working tirelessly but without purpose, building without vision, and chasing after shadows that cannot quench the thirst of the soul. That is why I tell you that sometimes the greatest act of progress is not to move forward with speed, but to stop deliberately, to step back intentionally, to withdraw purposefully. When one decides to disappear for a season, not in fear, not in cowardice, but in wisdom, it is an act of reclaiming ownership of the self. To withdraw for 3 months is to declare that your life cannot be dictated solely by the noise of society. It is to announce to the world that your destiny deserves reflection, not merely reaction. Many people confuse activity with productivity. They think that because they are constantly busy, they are necessarily advancing. But busyness without direction is like a ship caught in a storm. There is plenty of movement, but no progress. The 3-month disappearance is a deliberate act of cutting off the noise so that clarity can once again be found. Consider the great men and women of history. Moses disappeared to Mount Sinai before leading a nation. Muhammad retreated to the cave of Hira before proclaiming his mission. Jesus vanished into the wilderness before his public ministry. In every age, those who changed the course of humanity began with a season of disappearance, because clarity is never found in the marketplace of distraction. It is discovered in the silence of solitude. To withdraw is not to abandon responsibility. It is to prepare oneself to shoulder it with greater wisdom and strength. The world will try to convince you that if you are not constantly visible, you are irrelevant. It will tell you that to disappear is to lose. But I submit to you that true irrelevance is not in disappearing. It is in living a life without reflection, without depth, without intentionality. 3 months may appear short to those who measure life in days and hours, but for those who understand the weight of destiny, 3 months can be a season of transformation. It is in this disappearance that the fog of confusion begins to lift and the inner compass begins to point toward true north. In solitude, you confront the self that you often avoid. You meet your fears face to face without distraction to cover them. You see your weaknesses not as excuses but as realities demanding strength. And you rediscover that within you lies not just noise but wisdom, not just desire but discipline, not just confusion but clarity. Withdrawal sharpens your vision. It allows you to hear your own thoughts, to listen to the whisperings of conscience, and to discern the subtle guidance of destiny. Let me tell you why many are afraid of this disappearance. They fear solitude because they have not learned to befriend themselves. They rely on the applause of others, the constant notifications of devices, the perpetual approval of society. Silence terrifies them because it confronts them with the truth of who they are without masks, but it is precisely that confrontation that liberates. For how can a man or woman lead others if they have not first led themselves? How can one command clarity in the public square if they have never cultivated clarity in private? 3 months of disappearance in 2026 is not a withdrawal from life. It is a return to life. It is a chance to strip away the unnecessary, to silence the voices that cloud judgment, and to focus on the things that truly matter. It is an opportunity to design your life rather than simply drifting through it. Think of it as sharpening the axe before cutting the tree. The unwise man keeps striking endlessly with a blunt blade, exhausting himself in the process. The wise man pauses, sharpens his axe, and with fewer strikes accomplishes more. Your disappearance is that sharpening, a preparation for greater efficiency and effectiveness when you return. Do not be deceived into thinking that clarity can be bought or borrowed. It must be cultivated. It requires intentional withdrawal, where you cut yourself off from the addiction of constant approval, where you fast from the noise of media and the distraction of shallow engagements. Clarity is not given freely, it is earned in the furnace of reflection. It is the reward of those who have the courage to step aside when the world is running madly forward, chasing everything yet catching nothing. When you withdraw for 3 months, the first companion you will meet is silence. And silence, my friends, is not emptiness. It is not the absence of meaning. Silence is the teacher that society has trained us to ignore. In a world where everyone is screaming to be heard, where every platform rewards noise over wisdom, silence becomes revolutionary. It is in silence that the fragments of a broken life begin to realign. It is in silence that the fractured spirit begins to mend. And it is in silence that the distracted mind regains its power of concentration. Many people run from silence because it appears uncomfortable. They cannot bear to be alone with their thoughts. They prefer the endless hum of background noise, the constant chatter of digital companions, the illusion of connection without the depth of understanding. But to those who are wise, silence is not a threat. It is a sanctuary. It is the forge where strength is built, the workshop where the soul is reconstructed. In those 3 months of disappearance, silence will dismantle the illusions you have been clinging to, and it will rebuild you from the inside out. Think of silence as a mirror. When you sit in it long enough, it forces you to see yourself without the disguises you present to the world. In the quiet, there are no masks to hide behind, no applause to comfort your ego, no distractions to shield you from your own truth. Silence exposes, it lays bare the insecurities you have ignored, the fears you have buried, the wounds you have disguised. But it also reveals strengths you did not know you had, courage you thought you lacked, and resilience that had been waiting to be awakened. Silence does not simply strip you down, it reconstructs you. This is why the disappearance is not about running from the world, but about preparing to re-enter it with greater wisdom. If you spend 3 months in silence, you will emerge with clarity of thought, steadiness of heart, and depth of character. You will no longer be tossed about by every opinion or swayed by every trend, because silence teaches you that not every voice deserves your response, and not every noise deserves your attention. In silence, you discover that strength is not in reacting quickly, but in discerning wisely. It is also in silence that the great dialogues of life take place. You begin to converse with your conscience, that inner voice that is often drowned out by external noise. You begin to hear the subtle whisperings of destiny calling you to a higher path. And if you are attentive enough, silence allows you to hear the voice of the divine, which rarely shouts but almost always whispers. When prophets, sages, and thinkers of old retreated into the wilderness, they were not fleeing humanity. They were attuning themselves to a higher frequency, to insights that cannot be accessed in the crowd. But silence is not passive. It is not the mere absence of sound. True silence is active, dynamic, reconstructive. It disciplines the restless mind that is addicted to constant stimulation. It strengthens the spirit that has grown weak from indulgence. It purifies the heart from the toxins of resentment, envy, and fear. Silence demands that you sit with your pain until it teaches you, that you wrestle with your doubts until they yield wisdom, that you confront your weaknesses until they transform into strength. This is the laboratory of silence, the inner reconstruction that takes place when you dare to disappear. Some may ask, what can 3 months of silence accomplish in a world that moves so quickly? And I answer, it can accomplish what years of restless motion cannot. For clarity is not a product of speed, but of depth. You can spend a lifetime moving fast and achieve nothing of substance, or you can spend 3 months in silence and return with a vision that changes your destiny. History shows us that great transformations do not occur in noise, but in quiet preparation. Revolutions of the soul precede revolutions of the world. The true test of a disappearance is not in how quietly you vanish, but in how powerfully you return. Many people misunderstand withdrawal. They think disappearing for 3 months is an act of hiding, a pause button pressed on life. But I submit to you that the disappearance is not an interruption. It is a preparation. It is not meant to suspend your journey. It is designed to transform your being so that when you reemerge, you are not the continuation of the old self, but the unveiling of a new one. Think of the caterpillar. To the casual observer, it disappears into the cocoon, inactive and irrelevant. But inside that cocoon, a transformation so radical is taking place that the creature that emerges cannot be compared to the one that entered. What went in crawling emerges flying. What went in consuming emerges creating beauty. The disappearance was never a retreat. It was a metamorphosis. And so it must be with you. If your disappearance does not end in transformation, then it has been wasted. For to reemerge the same is to have gone into hiding without purpose. The world you return to after 3 months will be the same in many ways, loud, chaotic, demanding, but you will not be the same. And therein lies the power. You will return not as one tossed about by circumstances, but as one anchored by clarity. You will return not seeking validation from the crowd, but carrying a vision born in solitude. You will return not fragile and fragmented, but whole, reconstructed by silence, fortified by reflection, and disciplined by withdrawal. You will not be merely continuing life as before. You will be beginning a new chapter altogether. People around you will notice. They may not understand the process you have undergone, but they will see the fruit. They will hear it in your words, no longer scattered, but precise, deliberate, powerful. They will see it in your actions, no longer reactive, but intentional, driven by conviction rather than convenience. They will feel it in your presence, calm, steady, commanding respect not because you demand it, but because you embody it. This is what it means to reemerge transformed. You become a force of influence not because you sought the spotlight, but because you prepared yourself in the shadows. But understand this, transformation is not automatic. Time alone does not change you. What you do with that time does. 3 months of disappearance can be wasted if they are filled with distraction masquerading as solitude. Some withdraw physically, but remain chained mentally to the noise they tried to escape. They carry the world into their retreat, and so they leave unchanged. Transformation requires intentionality. It requires that you engage the silence, wrestle with the truth, and reconstruct yourself deliberately. Only then can your reemergence be authentic, powerful, and undeniable. When you reemerge transformed, your presence unsettles mediocrity. Mediocre people are uncomfortable around those who carry vision. They will say you have changed, as though it were a criticism. And you must respond, yes, I have changed. I disappeared to be changed. The danger is not in changing. The danger is in staying the same when life demands that you grow. If your disappearance does not make some people uncomfortable, it may not have gone deep enough. Consider the seasons of life. Nature itself teaches us that withdrawal and reemergence are part of the rhythm of growth. The tree sheds its leaves in autumn, stands bare in winter, only to re-emerge in spring with fresh life. It does not mourn the loss of the old leaves, because it knows that new ones are coming. In the same way, your 3-month disappearance is your winter season, quiet, stripped down, seemingly unremarkable. But your return will be your spring, renewed, vibrant, and flourishing. The cycle of growth demands transformation, not continuation. The question, then, is how you will choose to re-emerge. Will you step back into the world timidly, hoping no one notices you have been away? Or will you return boldly, carrying the fruits of silence, discipline, and reflection? The decision is yours. But know this, the world is hungry for men and women of clarity, strength, and depth. It is tired of the shallow, the loud, and the reactive. If you dare to disappear and truly transform, your reemergence will not just change your life, it will impact the lives of those around you. Do not think of your disappearance as a retreat from relevance, think of it as training. The soldier who disappears into the barracks for months is not wasting time, he is preparing for the battlefield. The musician who withdraws into the studio is not irrelevant, she is crafting songs that will one day move nations. The leader who retreats for reflection is not abandoning his people, he is preparing to lead them with wisdom. Likewise, your disappearance is not withdrawal from life. It is preparation to engage it at a higher level. When you return, you must embody transformation so evident that you no longer need to announce it. Your actions will speak louder than words, your discipline will testify louder than declarations, and your presence will inspire more than your explanations. You will not be the continuation of the old self. You will be the unveiling of a new creation.